Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the PETHS Alumni Network podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we are joined by Mr. Ashar Ahmed. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being on. So to give a bit of introduction, you graduated from PET in 2018. You then went on to Dalhousie University, where you studied computer sciences, and now you're working in the medical field. So I guess we'll kind of work backwards. We were talking a little bit offline. You were born in America, and then you lived in Nova Scotia for a little bit.
Newfoundland.
And then you moved. Oh, sorry, Newfoundland. And then you moved to PET. So tell us a little bit about, that experience. What was different about PET for you?
I won't lie. PET was an incredibly game-changing opportunity for me. Wanting to do computer science, wanting to do sciences, wanting to, rise above and try to get out of a situation that I was in. And I was just like, I want to do technology. I want to do sciences. And I'll be honest with you, the Maritimes, the East Coast, they're great, but not exactly the most STEM oriented. So I knew for a fact I wanted to do STEM. And frankly, after past maybe 10th grade, we don't really have computer science as a subject does not exist there. You can't study it. So the first inkling folks have with computer science or even any of the sciences is probably university first year. I knew for a fact I wanted to get ahead of it, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to go to a specialized school that would orient people who have, so I have a very minor disability, probably can tell, but I have a very minor form of autism. And in in part of the coasts, if you go to Alberta, if you go to parts of Saskatchewan, if you go to Manitoba, if you go to Newfoundland, if you go to Nova Scotia, you get immense pressure from folks to move somewhere else because the mentality is, well, we can accommodate you. PET was the one place that accommodated me. So PET was truly an eye-opening experience for me in that they gave me what I needed. They were like, we're not gonna grill you on this. We're gonna give you what you need. And it opened my eyes to the fact that people can be, if they really want to help you, they will help you. And it took me a while being any one of us from PET, I'm sure, would struggle in any of those environments because it's just not meant for us, right? PET, I felt like almost like a mini university in the sense that we have folks who have doctorate degrees. And literally friends of mine who are becoming teachers joke and they say, PET was something else. We're teachers. We grow up here in Nova Scotia. We grew up here in Newfoundland. We live in BC or wherever. And a couple of friends of mine who work in the teaching industry are like, truly, that was a totally different school. They oriented you. They got you into the real world in the sense of they gave you an entry pass. And I felt that PET really gave that to me. So my favorite class at Trudeau, at least, was taking grade 12 Canadian and world politics with Mr. Bolden. Incredible guy.
I think we talked a little bit off camera about the diversity that exists and the acceptance that exists at PET. You briefly touched on it before. When exactly would you say that you knew you wanted to go into computer sciences? Was there an event for you that really solidified your interest?
So I don't really tell many people the story, but at one point I was literally failing grade 9 math. I moved in from Newfoundland. The school system there was not as adequate, so I struggled a lot in grade 9 math because, at least in Newfoundland and a lot of other provinces, we have junior high. We don't have elementary until grade 8. So moving from junior high to high school and being in grade 9, whereas normally I'd be in a junior high situation, I'd be taken on with a bit more kid gloves. Going to PET, I really struggled in math and French. Those two areas I remember. They literally sat my parents down for a meeting being like, your kid is struggling in this area. We have to get him some sort of this type of support. And I knew for a fact that I'd struggle in math, French less so much, but I knew for a fact math was a struggle for me. But computers was the one thing I felt like, if it was tangential to math, but I was good at it. I knew I could do it. So I remember taking grade, I want to say TEJ 2.0. So it was technology second in grade 10 with Mr. Cohen. And he literally invited me to join the computer science club after school on Tuesdays. And they were like, if you want to improve your skills, go there. And I did. I won't lie, it was a struggle for me because coming from Newfoundland and struggling to do basic math and then going to a computer science thing, we're learning advanced algorithms and that sort of thing, like literally university level topics. It was a big jump for me. But the folks there literally built me to be the person that I am today, in the sense that all of the gaps in my education that I needed to fill in, they helped me fill in. And they never gave up on me. And that was the one thing I loved about PET. They never give up on you.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly well said. What would you say was like the biggest like learning point throughout that process for you?
Definitely learning to talk less and do more. Especially with a few teachers of mine, I would say. Miss Twitty in the science department, incredibly kind. She was the one teacher I would say that had the most impact on me as a person, just because we had gone through similar experiences. She kind of understood what I was going through, and she wanted to see things improve for me. And she, I think her father is a teacher, I think. So she kind of understood the whole situation of like, look, we're teachers. We're supposed to teach people, like we had to have some compassion. So I do think that one monumental moment for me was going into grade 10 science, entering her classroom. And I remember being stunned by how compassionate she was about little mistakes I made. I'm like, I'm not getting yelled at. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, people are treating me with real kindness here. And it was really a moving experience for me, because that was one of the first times I felt I was in the classroom and I was being treated fairly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's something we can all kind of experience. More some people than others. When you were applying to universities, what schools were you looking at?
So I got into U of T. I got into Waterloo. I got into U Ottawa, and I got into Guelph. All for different subjects. Some in computer science, some in politics. But the one school that took me in for computer science, frankly, was, well, the two schools that took me in for computer science was, I think, Guelph, not Guelph, Windsor and Dalhousie. And so I remember considering and thinking to myself, do I go to Windsor and do I attend a 3? So their undergrad for their computer science program is actually 3 years. And Dalhousie was 4 years. So I was in the rest of them for politics, and I really was at a crossroads of like, do I do computer science? Do I do politics? What should I do? And I really thought about it. A good friend of mine actually came to me from the US, actually. He was like, look, you can do politics with just about anything. Get your computer science degree. If you want to do another degree after that, you're more than welcome to, but like, don't do a politics degree just because like there's too many people who do a political degree and they struggle a lot, right? Because it's almost like the skills that we need now are more technical. So I credit him, and he pushed me to go to Dal, because he was like, look, if you do a 3-year degree at Guelph, at Windsor, I keep saying Guelph, at Windsor, you can't do a master's. So I wanted to do a master's for sure, and I went to Dal. So one thing I love about Dal, at least, is I won't lie, compared to Ontario, you do feel that you're grading you on a bit of a curve, because folks here, they don't have the same background that we do at PET. So like a lot of first and second year was frankly just revising and relearning what I already learned in high school. And I almost was like, in a way, I almost didn't like it. But then I realized I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to catch up. You know what I mean? For those folks to like, for me to help them and help the people here, with the stuff that I struggled with. I sort of got involved, and I started trying to help folks in the same situation that I was in. And hopefully now I'm hopefully going for a master's degree after I'm done. So I'm just about in my last classes basically for my undergrad, but I'm hoping to go to Georgia Tech in online, hopefully, but in the US, in Atlanta.
That's a great school. I wish you all the best with that. What are some of the like experiences that you had at university that stick out to you specifically?
Well, COVID for sure.
Yeah.
I think COVID for everybody was a big downer, but what I will say is being able to take classes online. I don't know if you I'm not certain if they have that still at, well, when you graduated, they had it, but they had that requirement for online learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I took a lot of my classes by choice online, and there's still a lot of a stigma, at least in classy university settings, that online education is not the same as, in person. You just don't learn the same. I feel it's more just about your work ethic. If you're actually willing to put in the time and effort and you're actually wanting to learn instead of just get the easy credit, like you can learn online. It just depends on the type of person you are. So going to university and learning a lot online and realizing that like this is the future of learning. This is how people are going to learn, 10, 20, 30 years from now.
So, going to school out of province, if there was a kid at PET right now who's looking to also go out of province, what would you sell them on about Dalhousie specifically?
It's a very tight-knit school, very small. I won't lie, when I moved from Markham to Halifax, there was a lot of culture shock, obviously, because Markham and Halifax are two totally different worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I did retain was the incredible kindness of people here. We have, most people don't know this. We have the size, the population of Markham,
mm-hmm.
but 6 universities. 6.
Mm-hmm.
Markham doesn't have 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, well, we will soon. But yeah. So what I will say is keep your mind open.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge, because when I move out of province, you're classically, I remember when I moved to another school outside, if you either go to Alberta, if you go to BC, if you go anywhere outside of Markham, because Markham really is the hub for STEM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I won't lie, you have to come down to their level sometimes, people's level sometimes, right? In a way where you're like, there were many times, at least in my first year, where I was sitting around, I'm like, don't people already know this? But you have to remember, like, people don't. That's why we're there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So moving out of Markham and moving to any other place, I would say it's an incredible place. You guys got to take it easy. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I get the feeling that a lot of folks from Markham, they take life too seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can see what you mean by that for sure. What was kind of the biggest like learning point from you in university versus high school? Like what did you learn specifically about yourself and about like life skills, for example?
Knowledge does not equal wisdom. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but you're not wise unless you go through adversity and learn from that. And at least on the coasts, at least, they learn through adversity. It's not about school instruction, and they almost have a negative attitude towards those who spend all their time in academia, because they're like, you have not seen the real world, you have not seen how people actually interact in workplace settings, etc. You don't have that experience. What I will say is that people here, at least on the coasts, value experience more than anything, especially in university and in higher, when you go into work life. Get that experience. No matter how much co-op you do, no matter how much time you spend in classes learning about management or business, nothing will replace going into a business setting and learning from them in person. And I thought I knew everything. Going from PET, classic mentality of I graduated from high school, I know everything. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a super, it's a fallacy that, a lot of people do have, and especially coming from, an accomplished high school, a lot of people, might have that too. But
the big thing is, you're competing with everybody else who also got in.
Yeah, no, like what can you really say about like people who are in that situation and they're uncomfortable when, other people are on top of their class? Do you have any like words of advice for people dealing with that?
Don't be afraid of failure. I met so many people at PET who would literally freak out when they got a grade less than like maybe a 90. And I'm like, relax, it's not the end of the world. I don't tell many people this. My first grade in math at PETS was like in the 30s. I went from being a 90 student to being in the 30s, and I'm like, what caused such a shift in grading to go from a 90 to a 30? Really caused me to reevaluate, and I realized, it's not me. It was kind of it was more just the environment, and just recognizing that sometimes you're just not in the right environment. Sometimes you just got to get out. It's not your fault, and it's not your, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you move from one place to another, it is very tough, and you should not take it. You know, I remember when I got that first grade, I literally thought my world was ending because I never had gotten at such a low grade. You know, if you've been a 90 student your entire life and you get a 30, you're just like, what the, you know, what did I do wrong? And my teachers, my parents, they all were like, it's not that big of a deal. Everybody gets a bad grade every now and then. What matters is how you recover from it. And so I retook the class because I was doing okay in the class, but I wanted to improve my grade because I was worrying a lot. But it really doesn't matter. That's what I like. Your grade 12 marks matter, but even then, when I got to university, I remember, this is hilarious because I graduated late, technically, like a month or two late, actually, because I was missing an art credit. So my grade 9 art credit, I didn't get it because I moved over and I didn't get proper guidance to get all the classes I needed done. So when I moved to Halifax, I got into university. I was worried sick that they would find out that I technically didn't graduate on time and they would kick me out. I'm like, no one cares. As long as you have prerequisites, nobody cares if you're missing a credit from grade 9. What we care about is your competencies in your senior year. So if you're not even able to pass all your senior class, that means more than than anything else. So take it easy. Don't take too much stress and have fun.
So sorry, we talked a little bit off camera about, you know, you working at the federal government. Kind of tell us about your experiences working there and what you learned along the way.
Yeah, so I won't lie, coming from Markham and then going into the federal government, everybody I know was like, Markham is sort of seen as, at least among my peers and many of the folks I study with, is like the San Francisco of Canada, in the sense that we're a tech hub. We have AMD, we have NVIDIA, we have all these big corporations, especially in tech industry. Ottawa, the capital, is not understanding about tech people. So I worked my way up, literally. I started working you folks remember the CERB, right? The emergency benefit, where they gave out tons of money. So I actually got on the student benefit, the CESB. They gave out $2,000 or something to every Canadian, every student, sorry, as a benefit for COVID. And, you know, like they gave those benefits out. And, you know, I started working phones, helping people on COVID relief. And I worked my way up being an intern as a software developer. Then I worked my way up again to be a full-blown, like a full-time software developer. Then I moved up again to be working at the digital service. And what I learned from all of that is moving out of Markham, incredibly, you know, anybody who's getting out of PETHS and going to a school outside, you got to give yourself some credit. I really went through a lot of challenges where I was really struggling. I really questioned, and I even had people kind of confront me and say, you know, we're not Markham. We're not understanding to the point that Markham is. So I really felt guilty of like, what am I doing wrong? And people pulled me aside and they were like, it's not your fault. It's not on you. It's because the folks here, you know, you have that conflict of cultures. And take it easy, you know, don't put a burden on yourself. The biggest mistake I made, and the thing I would recommend any other student going out of PET and going into the government, going into university, whatever, take it easy. You know, people are going to cut you some slack. People are going to know that you're coming from Markham. People know that you're coming from an environment that is more understanding, accepting. So what I will say is that if you face a culture shock, don't stress out. There's always going to be people out there to help you. So when I moved to digital service, it felt like truly the folks around me were like, you know, we now get why you moved to Markham. So moving up always helps you. So moving up to the digital service, at least, was incredibly beneficial for me in the sense that I truly felt I'm back in Markham. Like the same environment I was in at Trudeau, where people were incredibly understanding, I got there. And to anybody who's struggling in the way that I was, you can do it too. Like I thought I couldn't do it. I got there. I got out of it. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, there wasn't anything to worry about at the end of the day. being in that situation, so I have a disability, asking for accommodations, I didn't get that in most of Canada, if you ask for an accommodation and they think it's more than maybe $200 worth, they don't want to do it because they're just like, it costs too much money, we don't want to implement, et cetera, et cetera. In Markham, they will give it to you, no questions asked. Their mentality is, we need to help this person succeed, whatever you need. I love that attitude. And truly, of course, I won't lie, and more often than not, I will run into the opposite attitude of, we can't do it. But I always remind people, even anybody who's struggling in the same situation I was, with a stutter, with a disability, with whatever, there's always somebody out there that's going to help you out. And never give up on yourself, and other people won't give up on you.
You know, moving into the future with all these, you know, motivational stories and inspirational stories in mind, what are some like aspirations? You mentioned you're going for your master's degree. Like, what else do you hope to accomplish?
Honestly, I'm hopefully running in politics in a few years. So probably 2020, not the next election, but the one afterwards. I've always wanted to go into politics. Hopefully, I'm certain many folks from Trudeau will support me. But yeah. Everybody, I think, I'm sure, even in my class, remembers me as being an awkward kid, acting out, having a lot of gas. But at the end of the day, they forgave me for it. They were like, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you have a disability, but you can overcome it. And I really didn't believe in myself then, but I really wished I believed in myself in the way that they did. And people like Trudeau never gave up on me. And I do hope that, hopefully, I can take that spirit into government and show people, look, caring for people is just part of who we are as people, as trailblazers, you know?
Yeah, I know that greatly, you know, summarized the spirit of our school and, you know, everything it stands for. And I really, you know, am a big believer that Trudeau is one of the best schools out there. You know.
One quick thing I want to say here.
Yeah.
Was I did have the opportunity to chat with, not directly, but through an intermediary with the Prime Minister, Trudeau. And he actually learned that, you know, I went to PLA Trudeau, and he really was like, that school really took you, you know, got you going places. You know what I mean? Like, especially for the French-speaking community, they really love that, you know, we have a school named after PLA Trudeau, and more importantly, that our ideals are more for, you know, people. I recognize this, but we really have something special at Trudeau. Everybody else who I meet coming from Ottawa, from Kingston, et cetera, they're like, Trudeau is one of a kind, you know, like everybody there, incredibly kind, you know, cherish your high school years, take it easy. What I did was I took too much of a burden on myself worrying about my high school grades, thinking that, you know, it's going to matter in the end. At the end of the day, nobody even cares about your high school grades. As long as you get into a school for your undergrad, you'll be able to move up in life. So I used to worry so much about, I got to get this 90, I got to get this 80, that I almost gave up on making those real experiences, going out there, going to prom, etc. I did do those things, but I really felt at a point, and I was like, you know, I should be focusing more on school. Looking back, I'm like, enjoy your high school years. Don't stress too much about your grades. Doesn't matter if you get a 75 or an 85. What matters is that you have fun.
What would you recommend for, you know, you mentioned that you moved up very quickly in the government. What were some of the things that helped you, you know, move up so quickly?
Advocate. Tell people what you're going through. So for me, at least, I was struggling openly with a disability, and I'm not shy about it. There's many people in government who see it as a weakness, unfortunately, but my mentality was, I see it as a strength. Like, the more I can be open about it, the more I can explain it. Sure, there will always be people who judge you for it. That's a fact of life. But at least in my experience, no matter what adversity you go through, I look up to the people like, hate to be cheesy, but like, you know, look at Joe Biden. He struggled with stutter, and you know, he moved his way up to being president. And he even mentions how he used to stutter a lot as a kid, and he just practiced every single day. He never gave up, and he always tells that to people. So what I would say is, be open about yourself. If you're going through something, tell people, and if they give you stuff for it, you know, forget about them. So it took me a while to recognize that, you know, people don't really care at the end of the day. You can use that, you know, I used to worry so much about what other people thought of me. I think a lot of kids go through this too, where they're always worried about like, oh, what is this person going to think? at the end of the day, people just want to see that you succeed. As long as at the end of the day you succeed, you know. Moving up and moving quickly. I won't lie. A lot of people thought, oh, well, he moved up so quickly. He used us to get to X, Y, Z. Don't listen to those folks. Do whatever you need to do to succeed. At the end of the day, the only person looking out for you is you. So I really hate to be cliche. Don't listen to the haters. Listen to yourself. Listen to your gut. I mean, like naturally, like I always doubted myself, doubted my gut feeling. And somebody pulled me aside and was like, trust your gut. Your gut is telling you something important. You have to listen to it. And the second I started listening to my gut and knowing, look, my roots in Markham are important. My roots with my family are important. My culture is important. All these things, you know, they matter. And I imagine a lot of, especially immigrant kids coming from, you know, Asia or wherever in the world. Like I'm an Asian kid moving around and then moving to Markham. I won't lie, you will, moving after PET, you will run into challenges, but don't let them define you. Like, don't remember that there's always somebody out there who's going to be that figure, that understanding figure that folks were at Trudeau. So like, never give up on yourself, and people won't give up.
So just to close up here, if you could describe our school in one word, what would that word be? Inspirational. Inspirational. Great word. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. Yeah, truly. It sounds silly, but to somebody coming out of any other province going to Markham, feels like Trudeau is really like the most accepting, understanding place that you could be. Sounds silly to anybody growing up in Markham being like, you know, this is just how we are. But to an outsider, it is a beacon of hope. And I think more people in Markham, and I think more Trailblazers have to recognize that we have something incredibly, incredibly amazing here, and we have to keep it, and we have to make sure that future generations are not only able to get to the level of access that Trudeau has, but to make sure that the vision that we have at Trudeau spreads to the rest of the country. I meet so many young people who literally say, you know, Trudeau changed you and changed you for the better. And if we could enroll our kids in Trudeau, if we could move to Markham, if we had the money to do so, we would. And it really opened my eyes to how, not only how much people are struggling, but how much people want that, they crave that inspiration that Trudeau gave me. And what I will say is, yeah, everybody at Trudeau, they never gave up on me, despite how much I struggled. If I made a mistake, they gave me another second chance. If I struggled again, they gave me a third chance. They never gave up. And that's what I would say. I would hope that we would for our kids, hopefully.
So wrapping up here, if we were to come back to you in 10, 20 years and we were to say Ashar is, and then there's a blank, what is it that you want to be known for?
A caring individual. So little things like going outside of Trudeau opened my eyes in a way to just how much Trudeau helped me and how much we really have to raise the bar for the rest of the country. So oftentimes we see so many institutions across this country who almost want us to lower our standards to meet the rest of the country. And I say, no, we have to raise the rest of the standards for the rest of the country to be at our level. And we want everybody to have that level of education. What I would say is, I want to be part of that change and make that a reality, and at least in the government, at least. And it's going to be a tough fight, but I hope that at least all these other folks, my real hope is that if we can build a movement of young folks coming into government, believing that things can change, they will change. And I remember being 15, 14, not knowing what I wanted to do, not knowing, you know, even if I would get into university, you know, being so worried about like, you know, will I get into a university? And now looking back, it's like, no, you're all fine, right?
Yeah.
So, and if anything, people would say you over excelled, you know, you put too much effort into it. So looking back, it's like, my hope is really hoping to drive and inspire other folks at Trudeau across the country in similar situations to join the government, really say, look, our rights are not as concrete as we believe them to be. We make those rights a reality. And I know for a fact that if enough people from Trudeau join the government, join public service, you know, work hard, work towards public service, you know, we'll change the country.
So we'll wrap it up here. One last question for you. You mentioned some teachers, you know, who have been, you know, role models for you. Do you have any fellow students that you'd like to shout out that you'd like to see on the podcast?
Yes, Olga Popova, I want to say. I don't know how to, I probably butchered her name there. Incredibly kind. I remember her throughout my high school years as being an incredibly kind person. You know, no matter how much I messed up, no matter how much, I remember her motto. She was like, in a world where you can be anything, be kind to people, or words to that effect. It really stuck with me. And it sounds silly, but even up until this day, she shows and exemplifies the spirit of what it means to be a trailblazer. Caring for others, you know, do unto others that you have undone to yourself. So she really helped me. Another friend of mine, I would say, is Emily Huang. I think she now goes to, well, she went to Waterloo, I believe. I took grade 12 computer science with her. And, you know, the joke is, you know, all these computer science majors, we're not exactly the most sociable folks, but my God, she really helped me with improving my social skills to get up to a point where she was like, you know, you help me, I help you. And it really took me a while to really realize, you know, that's life, you know? It sounds silly, but there's been, yeah. And one other person I would say here is Curtis Chong. So he's a incredible fellow programmer at, well, I wouldn't say programmer, I would say more formally like a software developer, software engineer. Also goes to Waterloo, I believe. Always kind, always accepting. When I needed somebody, he was there. No judgment. Yeah. So I would say wrapping it up, yeah, everybody at Trudeau is incredibly kind. Those three folks. Olga, Emily, and Curtis. Those three folks were inspirational to me. And really, I still say that they've shaped the person I am today.
Okay, we'll have to get them on here. You know, they sound like amazing people. We'll get them on here for sure. So thank you so much for your time. You know, it was really inspirational and, you know, great to hear your story and, you know, all that you've accomplished and all that you're going to accomplish in the future. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see everyone next week. Peace out.